And tell us about your free speech bill as well. It ties into the indictment, which itself is a criminalization of wrongthink.
It is. This is, I mean, it's exactly what the topic was that in terms of the bill I've got. And what it does is there's long been a bill or a statute, a civil rights statute enacted right after the Civil War that allows people to bring private claims for relief, lawsuits, against state officials who violate their constitutional rights. It's not been done for federal officials who violate your rights. A couple of those have been allowed in a couple of cases, the Fourth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, under law made by the Supreme Court over time, but not the First Amendment. And what this bill would do would put federal officials who deny First Amendment rights, who abuse First Amendment rights of private citizens, in exactly the same position. You could sue federal officials for that wrong. And that's exactly what needs to happen. Harriet Hageman of Wyoming and I have co-sponsored this bill as original sponsors. It ought to pass. Now, it ought to get through. I wouldn't put it in the same priority as what I just said about defunding the DOJ's witch hunt of President Trump, but it ought to be a priority. It could fix a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, I totally agree. By the way, we would materially benefit from this because we were targeted by our own government, and they outsource it, right, Congressman? And they think they're being cute or tricky. And by the way, we're entertaining a very serious lawsuit. We're in our final stages of it's like tons of legal fees and all this against the Department of Homeland Security because our Twitter account was, I can't remember, is the Election Partnership Institute. They use these outsourced 501c3s.
Election Integrity Partnership.
Yeah, there you go. Tell us more about that, Congressman.
Well, you're absolutely right. Michael Schellenberger famously dubbed it the censorship industrial complex. I prefer to call it the censorship laundering enterprise. But all of these federal agencies, as Secretary Mayorkas used the terminology, across the federal enterprise, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency called CISA, the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, the State Department's, I can't even remember what the GEC stands for, all these three-letter agencies, all embedded themselves with social media companies directly, but more significant, allied themselves, made grants to these pseudo-academic institutions like the Stanford Internet Project, and they formed these ad hoc things. There was the Election Integrity Partnership, then there was the Virality Project dealing with COVID, and they just picked whole narratives to be squashed on social media. And they essentially threatened social media. Essentially, they didn't essentially, they did it directly, that they'd take away their Section 230 protections and so forth. They would hurt them if they didn't do what they were told. And that's what the judge in Louisiana said. His injunction's been temporarily administratively stayed by an appellate court, but he's found in a almost 200-page opinion all the facts in terms of how they deprived you and many other speakers, but also, more as importantly, every American who has a First Amendment right of access to information of all kinds of stuff, not stuff that just originated abroad, to which that constitutional right still applies, by the way, but stuff from domestic sources, including somebody important as you.